Dr. Zuletas here. So we're going to talk about the placebo effect and what it is. The placebo effect, you might have heard about it before because they tried, for instance, a medication comes out, they're trying to see whether this medication works or not. So then they take one group of patients, they give them that medication, and then take another group of patients and they give them a medication that looks like it, but it has none of the active ingredients. And this is what they call the placebo effect. Now, what happens is that if this medication works better than the placebo, then the medication goes well. If the medication is the same as the placebo, then it's looked at almost as if the placebo was the enemy of the medication. But now we have to start looking at it differently. And actually, scientists are starting to look at this question very differently. Not whether the medication is better or not than the placebo, but how can we actually use the placebo to help ourselves overcome illnesses, to help ourselves heal. And so this is what I want to talk to you about today, just so that you get an understanding of how much power really our brain has to actually start allowing ourselves to heal. And so the first thing I want to show you is this picture right here. This picture right here is Dr. Henry Knowles Betcher. Dr. Henry, he was actually a Harvard doctor, and he was actually a war doctor. And one time he was in the field and he ran out of morphine. He ran out of morphine and he didn't have any more morphine to give the patients medications. And then what happened is that he decided to actually give this patient a little bit of salt water, just regular water, as if this was the actual pain medication. And guess what happened? The patient actually had pain relief. And so isn't that crazy? So that was amazing because that was the first time that this phenomenon was actually documented. Now we know that this sort of studies actually do happen, and they actually do release endogenous, meaning from the body itself, there is a release of pain relievers. So there is a release of pain relievers from the body itself. There is endogenous opioid release. That's what that means. Endogenous opioid release. And so this was the first time that this was documented. And I want to mention it to you because as you are in this journey of trying to get better, of overcoming this disease, I want you to keep in mind how powerful our brains are and how much they have actually shown to help our bodies heal. And because we are in the mindset phase, I want to talk to you about this placebo effect. And so the first thing of the placebo effect is the biology. How does it actually work? And so in terms of the biology of the placebo effect, there is a couple of things that are important to notice. And I want to show you another graph right here. Which shows you a little bit of more detail about how this really works. So in the bottom, in the left, you have improvement. And in the bottom, you have the different characteristics of the placebo effect. And so as you can see, they say that you come into the hospital and there is some social interaction, right? So this social interaction actually helps you heal, right? And so they've done studies where people just come to the hospital and just fill out a form without the social interaction, and the healing is less. Now, the second thing is the psychological processes. The psychological processes meaning the expectations, the mindset that this person has from this disease. And the third thing is the biological aspect. So the biopsychosocial, again, in a smaller sense. And then in top of all of that, if you give the patient an active medication, it works even more. And so that's why it's so important for us to take a biopsychosocial aspect to this problem so that we can start tapping into our body to actually overcome this illness. And so in terms of the biological factors, the things that get activated are neurochemistry and our own body's immune response and healing response. So that that's what happens when we activate our biological placebo effect. Another way to look at it would be like a wound that is healing. That is a biological placebo effect. The psychological process, it has to do a lot with expectations, and it has to do a lot with the mindsets. So that the mindsets that we talked about earlier. Now the questions are, what are the mindsets that a patient should have to actually overcome this disease? Those are the questions that are now being asked. Scientists are now asking those questions to be able to have better answers for people. And then the other thing is the social context. And so in terms of the social context is really important. And the things that they noticed is that whether the doctor was attentive. If the doctor was attentive, that made a difference. But then if the doctor was competent, that made another difference. And so that's the first thing that we're going to be talking about today. And today we talked about the bio, and the main thing here is that our body actually triggers um, it triggers new responses towards this. And I'll give you an example. There was a study done, and it's this study right here. And there was a study done. This study right here showed that for people who had Parkinson's disease, right? If the doctor told them, hey, you're going to have Parkinson, you're going to have this medication, and it's going to give you the chemical that you need for Parkinson's disease. If the doctor said to them, hey, you're going to get 25%, you're going to get 50%, you're going to get 75%. Only the ones that the doctors told them you're going to get 75%, the brain lit up the same as the drug. So it's almost incredible that our brain actually has the ability to trigger the same chemical response that is like wanted of, like that's what we want the body to do, and that's what we want the brain to do. And so it's amazing that it can do that. And so that's what we need to tap. And that's what I believe that this is such a big factor of you reversing type 2 diabetes, that you believe on it, that you believe that everything that you're doing, that every piece of work that you are doing actually has an important and a positive effect towards your road to reversal of type 2 diabetes. All right. And so that's the biological aspect of the placebo